Gospels, in a very broad sense, call Saint Joseph as son of David. However, while the genealogy narrative of Matthew calls him son of Jacob, Luke indicates Joseph as son of Heli. A seemingly satisfactory answer to those contradictions about the family roots of Saint Joseph is available in the writings of Sixtus Julius Africanus, a historian from the 2nd century. This Roman Christian historian dated Jesus' conception to March 25th and subsequently birth of Christ to December 25th. In his opinion, this inconsistency regarding the two different names of Joseph's father in the genealogy narratives is attributed to the Jewish custom of Levirate marriage. Joseph's grandfather was Mattat, who had two sons, Jacob and Heli. Jacob married and died before having child. According to the Levirate law, his brother Heli married his brother Jacob's widowed wife and begot children for his brother. Thus, 3 children were born of that marriage: Joseph, Alphaeus, and Cleophas. It is firmly believed that Jacob, Joseph, Judah, and Simon, referred to as brothers of Jesus in the Gospels, are children of Alphaeus and Cleophas. Matthew, since he addressed the genealogy of Jesus to the Jewish Christians who were familiar with the Levirate marriage, wrote about the legal fatherhood of Joseph according to the Levirate law, whereas Luke, who composed the genealogy of Jesus for the pagan Christian community who were ignorant about this Levirate law, ascribed the fatherhood of Joseph to the biological father of Joseph. Some informal writings mention Joseph's mother's name as Rachel, which coincidentally is the name of the mother of Joseph from the Old Testament. Some ancient texts like the Proto-Evangelium of James, the history of Joseph the carpenter, and the Panarion remarks about the wedding between Joseph and Mary. Accordingly, Mary was born to Joachim and Anna at their old age. Born as an answer to their prayers, Mary was offered in the temple. She lived in the temple from the age of 3.5 years to the age of marriage. Mary, who lost her parents at the age of 12, was then entrusted to the responsibility of a chief priest. Since Mary belonged to the tribe of Judah, grooms of the same tribe were invited to the temple. Joseph was from the city of Bethlehem near Jerusalem, lived a chaste life according to the Nazarite vow, also reached the temple since he could not disobey the command of the priest. The chief priest then handed over a dried stem of lily, and during the prayer, as a sign from heaven, the stem with Joseph sprouted and lily bloomed with the flowers. It is from this tradition that we see images of Saint Joseph holding lily flowers. During their betrothal, the chief priest blessed them, saying, "I command and entrust to you the most holy Virgin of Israel. Be more and more worthy of her." And to which Joseph replied, "I will put my strength and my manly authority at her service, and no sacrifice on her behalf will be heavy for me." Similar narratives can be found in the poem of The Man God by Maria Valtorta. After the betrothal, since she had already lost her parents, she went to the house at Nazareth and lived there. It is here that she receives the Annunciation. According to the narratives in the book, the day Christ died, Joseph was 26 at the time of betrothal and was a carpenter. It could be assumed that, being a carpenter, Joseph migrated from Bethlehem to the city of Sepphoris, which was just 6 kilometers from Nazareth, in search of a job. There are very strong traditions which say that Mary's parents lived in the city of Sepphoris, where the Crusades later constructed a church in the name of Saint Anna. Some informal texts and traditions tell about the last moments of Saint Joseph. It was when Jesus was about 30 years old that Joseph died. Saint Bede of England mentions in his writings that Joseph was buried at the valley of Josaphat near Jerusalem. Since the 14th century, the commemoration of the death of Saint Joseph is made on March 19. Saint Francis de Sales as well as Saint Alphonse Liguori considered him the patron of a happy death. Early church traditions proclaimed the death of Saint Joseph to be the most fortunate death. After all, a death in the presence of Jesus and Mary. What can be more fortunate than that? Maria Valtorta, in her Of the Poem of the Man God, elaborates the vision of Saint Joseph at his death. The tradition of the Church has always acknowledged and venerated Saint Joseph, the protector of the Holy Family and the Holy Catholic Church. A theological vision about Saint Joseph in the traditions of the Church is first seen in the writings of Saint Jerome. Later, in the 4th century, in his writings against Helvidius, Jerome establishes and defends the claim that not only Holy Mary but Saint Joseph himself was a celibate. In the 8th century, Saint Joseph began to be known as caretaker of Christ and foster father of Jesus. By the time of Thomas Aquinas, in his Summa Theologica, Saint Joseph was referred to the protector of the Holy Family and especially as the protector of Mary and infant Jesus. Between the 16th and the 19th century, veneration towards Saint Joseph flourished in the Church. Prayer to Saint Joseph, novena to Saint Joseph, litany of Saint Joseph, scapulars, etc. developed in the several parts of the world during this period, and several such devotional practices also developed along with the several religious congregations. Saint Francis de Sales, in his book Introduction to Devout Life, advises that for a right growth in spiritual life, after making a proper examination of consciousness, each one must ask for the intercession of Holy Mother, Saint Joseph, and each one's patron saint. Saint Teresa of Avila as well as Saint Teresa of Lisieux, in their spiritual journey, always treasured their devotion to Saint Joseph. It was in the 15th century that Pope Sixtus V declared March 19 as the feast of Saint Joseph. Pope Pius IX in 1870, by his decree named Commodum Deus, declared Saint Joseph as the patron of the Universal Church. Later, in 1889, Leo XIII, in his encyclical Quam Pluris, exhorted the Universal Church to ask for the intercession of Saint Joseph. He continues to teach, and Joseph shines among all mankind by the most august dignity, since by divine will he was the guardian of the Son of God and reputed as his father among men. Devotion to Saint Joseph gained notable attention when Pope Saint John XXIII, at the beginning of the Second Vatican Council, entrusted the whole proceedings of the Council to the protection of Saint Joseph and instructed that the name of Saint Joseph be commemorated with that of Holy Mary during all the liturgical celebrations throughout the Council days. Saint John Paul II, in his apostolic exhortation Redemptoris Custos, acclaimed the role of Saint Joseph in the salvific history and his greatness as the protector of the Holy Family. He glorifies Saint Joseph as the guardian of the mystery of God and for his true fatherhood, leading a just life as a mature husband and head of the family and engaging himself as a carpenter. Says Pope John Paul II, Saint Joseph raised the dignity of human labor as part of the plan of God. Pope Benedict XVI raised the complete sacrifice of Saint Joseph as equal to that of the Holy Mother. Pope Francis, in his recent apostolic letter Patris Corde, familiarizes us towards the paternity of Saint Joseph, who silently proclaims the ever-loving God he experienced to the Holy Family entrusted in his care. Saint Joseph, through his life, demonstrates to discern and perceive the will of God even in our venture unto the unknown paths filled with the shadows of uncertainties and darkness of ignorance. The life of Saint Joseph is an invitation to each one of us to discern the mystery of the divine vocation in the Holy Family, in the Holy Church, as well as in each of our families, and to silently surrender to the will of God.